That year, when innocence and malice were intertwined, the sun in Los Angeles always carried a dazzling heat. But more scorching than the sun was the arrogance of the wealthy heirs in Beverly Hills. I stood beneath the crystal chandelier of the Nightingale Club, my fingers clutching the stem of a champagne glass, my knuckles turning slightly white. Half an hour earlier, the club manager had led me to Dylan, the man who held the power to shape Los Angeles's business world with a flip of his hand. He sat on a leather sofa, his long legs crossed, his gaze as calm as an unfathomable ocean. "Luna," he said, his voice colder than I had imagined, carrying the inherent detachment of someone in a position of authority, "I need you to keep an eye on Ryan. Stop him from street racing, fighting, and causing more trouble." The secretary beside him promptly handed over a document, clearly labeled, employment agreement, along with a check for an astonishing amount. As I glanced at the number on the check, my heart skipped a beat, but I still maintained a perfectly gentle and vulnerable smile on my face. "Mr. Dillon, I'm just an ordinary girl. I'm afraid I can't control young Master Ryan." Dillon lifted his eyes to look at me, no ripple in his dark pupils. "You don't need to control him. Just make him willing to listen to you." He paused, his fingertips tapping lightly on the armrest of the sofa. "Ryan likes girls with long hair who wear white dresses. He doesn't favor overly sharp personalities. You fit the bill perfectly." The secretary added from the side, "Ms. Luna, as long as you can keep the second young master out of trouble for 3 months, Mr. Dillon will give you an extra bonus on top of your monthly salary." My grip on the document tightened. Images flashed through my mind, the embarrassment of renting a small apartment in Los Angeles, and the ever-growing hospital bills for my mother. After a few seconds, I looked up, offering a timid yet determined smile. "I'll do my best, Mr. Dillon." And so, I became Ryan's pet bird. The first time I met Ryan, he was parked outside the Nightingale Club in a black Lamborghini, the roar of the engine turning heads left and right. He wore a black jacket, the collar unbuttoned slightly to reveal a faint scar on his collarbone. When he saw me, he raised an eyebrow, his tone casual. "So you're the one my brother found?" I lowered my head, fumbling with the hem of my white dress, and replied softly, "Yes. My name is Luna." He circled around me, his gaze sharp as a hook, sweeping over me from head to toe. "You're easy on the eyes, but way too timid." That night, I happened to be harassed by a group of drunk men outside the club. Just as I was about to burst into tears, Ryan rushed over and took down the drunks in a few moves. He stood in front of me, looking down at me. "Stay with me, and no one will dare to bully you again." I looked up, my eyes glistening with tears, my voice trembling with sobs. "Thank you, young Master Ryan." He froze for a moment, then curled his lips into a smile, reaching out to ruffle my hair. "Just call me Ryan." In the days that followed, I perfected the act of being vulnerable and dependent. Whenever Ryan wanted to go street racing, I would cling to his arm, tears welling up in my eyes. "Ryan, I heard someone got into an accident while racing last time. I'm so scared." When he saw my teary eyes, the impatience on his face would soften, and he would toss his car keys to his subordinate. "Fine, forget it. Not today." When he wanted to go to a bar to pick a fight, I would wrap my arms around his waist, my voice shaking. "Please don't go. I don't want you to get hurt." He would sigh in resignation, then turn around and take me to the movies instead. Everyone around said Ryan had changed. Even Dylan grew more satisfied with me. He tripled my salary and occasionally asked his secretary to send me luxury gifts. I became the most favored person by Ryan's side, and everyone thought I truly loved him. But no one knew that I practiced my sobs and expressions in front of the mirror every day. When I returned to my rental apartment at night, I would throw those expensive dresses aside, change into a loose t-shirt, and devour a hamburger. I had long grown tired of the fancy Western food Ryan loved, and I was sick of walking in high heels every day. I thought this routine would last a long time, until that street race. One afternoon, Ryan's friend called, saying there was a race at the suburban track, and emphasized that something good was waiting for him. A bad feeling settled in my chest. I took Ryan's hand and put on my familiar act. Ryan, don't go racing. I'm really scared. But this time, Ryan didn't give in as he usually did. He casually pulled out a cigarette, the lighter clicking as he lit it. Through the swirling smoke, his eyes held a laziness I had never seen before. Don't worry, your man's good at this. After speaking, he my hand and walked straight toward his black sports car. I stood frozen in place, my fingertips cold. Glancing over, I saw a group of men surrounding a girl in a white dress on the high platform at the corner of the track. Her shoulders were pinned down, and her eyes were filled with stubbornness, mixed with a hint of barely noticeable panic. That was the spot where Ryan's trophy would stand after he won a race. My heart sank, my double salary was gone. Behind me, I heard the snickers of a few socialites. One girl in a pink dress twirled her manicure, her tone mocking. You were sick and didn't go to the bar with Ryan the other day, right? That girl's name is Chloe. She's a hostess. Ryan saved her when she was being harassed, just like he saved you back then. I blinked slowly, processing her words. My eyes fell on Chloe. There was no feigned vulnerability in her gaze, only a raw, unpolished stubbornness. That kind of look could never belong to a pawn arranged by Dylan. Dylan would never let his pawns show such imperfect expressions. I looked up at the gray Los Angeles sky, tears pooling in my eyes. But there was no sincerity in those tears, just muscle memory from years of acting. When the race started, I stood by the track, watching Ryan's sports car dash forward like a black bolt of lightning. The crowd around me cheered, but all I felt was anxiety. Before long, a loud crash rang out. The car driven by young Master Eli had skidded off the track and hit the guardrail beside it. Chaos erupted on the scene. Angry shouts filled the air, and someone turned their frustration on Chloe. This is all your fault. If anything happens to Eli, you'll pay for it. Chloe stepped back, her face pale, but she still bit her lip, refusing to back down. Just then, Ryan walked over and stood in front of Chloe with a cold laugh. Real brave of you, blaming her for this. I walked over, took the black jacket Ryan had lent me earlier from my bag, and gently draped it over Chloe's shoulders, my voice soft. It's cold at night. Don't catch a cold. Chloe froze for a moment, looking up at me with confusion in her eyes. But Ryan's gaze suddenly turned sharp, like a blade dipped in ice, piercing straight through me. There was doubt, curiosity, and a hint of something I couldn't decipher in his look. I forced a small smile. You helped me once, too, on a night just like this. Chloe turned to Ryan. Young Master Ryan, who is she? Ryan didn't answer. He just stared down at me, and after a long moment, he turned to Chloe and said, Let's go. As I watched them walk away, the smile on my face froze, and my throat felt dry. My act was falling apart. Later, I still sent Dylan my resignation letter. I spent an hour wording it, painting myself as a poor girl who loved but had to let go, every line filled with the regret of having tried my best but failing. But before Dylan could reply, I received a call from the manager of the Nightingale Club, saying I had left something in my locker. I changed into a loose t-shirt and shorts, went to the club with no makeup on. I had just picked up the bag with a few old clothes when I heard a familiar, deep voice ring out in the lobby. This is the place. My heart tightened, and I instinctively tried to hide, but it was too late. Ryan walked at the front, with Chloe behind him, followed by a group of wealthy young people who had come to watch the fun. Chloe wore a white dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked as gentle and helpless as I had once seemed. Ryan glanced at the manager, his tone casual. Bring over the people who used to work in the same group as her. The her he was referring to was Chloe. I quickly pulled a mask over my face, lowered my head, and tried to slip out through the side door. But someone exclaimed, Luna? You can still recognize her? It was Jake, one of Ryan's friends, who had seen me a few times before. The manager sensed my embarrassment and quickly tried to smooth things over. Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you to the private room first. Drinks are already prepared inside. But the next second, my wrist was grabbed tightly. Ryan's knuckles turned white from the force, his tone brooking no refusal. Look up. Take off that mask. My body stiffened, and I stared fixedly at the ground, pretending not to hear. The air seemed to freeze, no one around dared to speak. Until Chloe's soft voice broke the silence. Ryan, my stomach hurts. Ryan's grip loosened slightly, and he finally let go of me. He turned to Chloe, his tone softening instantly. What's wrong? Do you need to go to the hospital? Chloe shook her head and leaned into Ryan's arms. No, I think I just got cold earlier. I fled the club as quickly as I could. When I got into a taxi, I realized my palms were covered in sweat. Outside the car window, Ryan was holding Chloe and walking toward his sports car. The sun shone down on them, making them look like a perfect couple. I sniffed my clothes, they still seemed to carry the faint scent of Ryan's cedar cologne. But I knew that by now, his clothes would be filled with the soft floral scent of Chloe. How long had they been together for their scents to mix like that? In the days that followed, I finally relaxed. No more waking up early to put on makeup, no more practicing sobs, no more forcing myself to eat the Western food I hated. I pulled out my phone SIM card, stayed in my rental apartment all day playing games and watching dramas. When I was hungry, I ordered takeout. When I was tired, I slept. But this peace didn't last long. Two men in black suits blocked me at the door of my apartment. Ms. Luna, Mr. Dillon would like to see you in his office. Dillon's office was in a skyscraper in the city center, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Los Angeles's bustling streets. The air conditioning in the office was even colder than last time. Dillon sat behind his large desk, his face calm, showing no emotion, only a hint of tiredness in his eyes. Ms. Luna, I think you've forgotten what you promised me. His voice was flat, but it carried an invisible pressure. I forced an awkward smile, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Ryan's fallen for someone else. He wants to stand up for her, there's nothing I can do. Dillon looked at me, and after a moment of silence, he spoke slowly. Not everyone is like you, only after money. I froze for a second, then realized, he must have approached Chloe, asking her to take my place, but she had refused. So you want me to come back? I bit my lip, already calculating in my mind. Dillon lifted his eyes, his dark pupils fixed on me. The Ellis have asked for you specifically to take care of Eli. To calm their anger. Take care of him? I asked, surprised, does Ryan know? Eli got hurt because of him, asking me to take care of him is clearly an insult. I am your employer, Dillon interrupted me, tapping his finger on the desk. Did you forget that? There was a faint coldness in his tone, and I suddenly realized I had no choice but to agree. I fell silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled, but I can go back to work, just in a different position. I paused, my eyes falling on the blank check on his desk. It all depends on how much Mr. Dillon is willing to pay me. Dillon pushed the blank check toward me, his tone flat. Fill in whatever amount you want. I picked up a pen and added a long string of zeros after the number. I knew Ryan had caused too much trouble this time. Eli was the Ellis' only child, and his parents were influential figures. Dillon would have to pay a huge price to calm their anger. When I pushed open the hospital room door, Eli was lying on the bed watching a movie, his left hand in a cast, hanging from his chest. He wore a loose hospital gown, his face pale, but there was still a lazy smile on his lips. When he saw me come in, he raised an eyebrow, his tone teasing. I thought you'd be crying and refusing to come. You got hurt because of Ryan. It's only right for me to do my part to help, I said, putting on a professional smile. But inside, I sneered. It seemed my act of being a gentle, vulnerable pet bird had really stuck. Eli looked at me with a playful smile, curiosity in his eyes. It's so hot. Come help me take off my clothes. As he spoke, he deliberately pulled at the collar of his hospital gown. I knew he was deliberately making things difficult for me. But I didn't hesitate. I walked over and unbuttoned his hospital gown one by one, revealing his chest wrapped in bandages. Faint traces of blood could still be seen on the bandages. I kept a straight face and asked, "Do you want me to take off your pants too?" Eli froze for a moment, surprise flashing in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to be so cooperative. After a few seconds, he laughed, "Sure." My hand had just touched his waistband when the hospital room door was kicked open. Ryan's angry shout rang out, "Get out of my way. I want to see how badly he's hurt." The bodyguards at the door tried to stop him, but he pushed them aside easily. My body froze, my hand still on Eli's waistband. When Ryan saw the scene in front of him, his eyes turned red instantly. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles creaked, and walked straight toward me. But Eli grabbed my hand first, smiling as he tried to smooth things over. "There are so many people here. Let's wait a bit." His tone was provocative. He clearly wanted to anger Ryan on purpose. Ryan's fist stopped just a centimeter away from my face. I could almost feel the anger radiating from him. I let out a sigh of relief and quickly explained, "I'm young Master Eli's caregiver now. I have to make sure he's safe." "Luna, what are you doing here?" Ryan's voice was hoarse. He grabbed my hand tightly, the pain making me almost cry out. "I'm fated to meet young Master Eli. He's hurt, so I came to take care of him," I said carefully, avoiding mentioning Dylan. I was afraid it would provoke him further. Eli added fuel to the fire, his tone mocking, "Yeah, it was love at first sight." "Fated? Love at first sight?" Ryan laughed angrily, his eyes filled with disappointment and anger. "You haven't answered my calls or messages for days, just to take care of him?" The people around quickly tried to mediate. Jake, one of Ryan's friends, walked over and pulled Ryan's arm, whispering an explanation for him. "Ryan's helping Chloe because she reminds him of you. Deep down, he's still thinking about you." I felt extremely annoyed. Why couldn't these people see what was right in front of them? All I wanted was to quietly take my money and leave, not get tangled up in more trouble. So I covered my face and started sobbing, tears streaming through my fingers. "Ryan, you hurt someone, that's your fault. I have to take care of young Master Eli to make up for it." "Damn it, why do you need to make up for anything?" Ryan cursed, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward the door. "I'll hire 10 caregivers. They'll take care of him until he's bored. Leave if you want, but don't take my person with you." Eli's voice came from behind, smiling. "Luna's my caregiver now." Ryan turned around, his eyes as cold as ice. "Luna is my woman, isn't that common knowledge? Ask her if she wants to go with you," Eli said slowly, his eyes fixed on me. All eyes turned to me. I pulled my hand away, my vision blurred by tears. "Ryan, I have to take responsibility for you." I knew this was the only way to make him let go. Ryan stared at me for a few seconds, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions I couldn't understand, anger, disappointment, and a hint of pain I had never seen before. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end, he said nothing. He turned around and walked away, his back straight as a board. As I watched him leave, I felt nothing but relief. I just needed to hold on to this caregiver job. But I hadn't been in the hospital room for long when Eli held his phone up to me, his tone teasing. "Look, your Ryan's causing trouble again." I leaned over and saw a video of the private room at the Nightingale Club. Ryan was holding Chloe, and the people around were shouting and arguing about something. The next second, someone threw a punch, and screams filled the air. My heart skipped a beat, not because I was worried about Ryan, but because I was afraid Dylan would blame me. I stood up quickly and took out my phone to call Dylan. Mr. Dylan, Ryan's fighting at the club. It seems pretty serious. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then a simple, I see. A moment later, my phone pinged with a bank transfer notification, a generous bonus. I hung up the phone contentedly and slipped it into my pocket. Eli looked at me, his tone mocking. I thought you wouldn't care about him. Only an idiot would pass up money, I snorted, picking up the wheelchair next to me. Come on, let's go to the club. We can't let him cause more trouble. After all, I had taken Dylan's money. I needed to at least put on a show. Eli froze for a moment, then nodded with a smile. Sure, I want to watch the fun too. I pushed Eli's wheelchair into the Nightingale Club. The place was in chaos. The corridor was littered with wine glasses and chairs, and a few security guards were trying to maintain order. I pushed Eli toward the private room with ease. When I had been taking care of Ryan, I had memorized the location and decoration of every private room in the club. Just as we reached the door of the private room, we heard Chloe's shrill voice from inside. What's wrong with what I said? Luna's just a hostess. Do you all really think she's some innocent little girl? She's the top hostess here. She's probably hooked up with dozens of men. I froze in my tracks, instinctively taking a step back. But the next second, the private room door was kicked open, and Ryan stumbled out, reeking of alcohol. His jacket was stained with wine, his hair messy, and his eyes were red as he stared at me, his tone as cold as ice. I was just about to find you, and you showed up on your own. Calm down, it's all a misunderstanding. I tried to explain, but I knew deep down that things were about to get worse. Ryan walked over to me in a few steps and reached out to grab the back of my neck, his grip so tight it felt like he was going to crush my bones. I frowned in pain, but I didn't dare to resist. I knew he was like a rabid beast right now, and resisting would only make him angrier. Just then, Ryan's assistant ran over, out of breath, holding a stack of documents. He handed them to Ryan. Young master, this is the information you asked for about Miss Luna. Ryan let go of the back of my neck, snatching the documents from the assistant. He flipped through them one by one, his face growing darker with each page. There were photos of me when I first joined the Nightingale Club, my employee records, and even screenshots of the surveillance footage from the day I first met Dylan. Everything was clearly printed on the paper. Ryan threw the documents at me, and the papers scattered all over the floor. This was all your plan? His voice was terrifyingly calm, but his eyes were filled with rage that seemed ready to consume me. I looked at the scattered documents, suddenly feeling exhausted. I had acted for so long, pretending to be someone I wasn't, and now, it was all over. I stood in silence for a few minutes, then nodded softly. Explain yourself. Ryan's voice rose sharply, the pressure in the air making it hard to breathe. Everyone around gathered around, curious, whispering to each other. Chloe walked over too, leaning against Ryan's side, a triumphant look in her eyes. Did you hear that? She lied to you. Luna's only after your money. Now you see her true colors. I knelt down and slowly picked up the documents from the floor. My fingertips brushed over the photo of myself on the papers. Back then, I had been happy to get this job, never imagining I would end up like this. I stood up, brushed the dust off my clothes, and said softly, "There's nothing to explain. What you see is what you get." Ryan stared at me, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions I couldn't decipher, anger, disappointment, and a hint of pain I had never seen before. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end, all he said was, "You sicken me." I didn't argue. I just looked at him, suddenly feeling a sense of relief. Finally, I didn't have to act anymore. I turned around, pushed Eli's wheelchair, and slowly walked out of the Nightingale Club. The cool evening breeze of Los Angeles brushed against my face, but I felt an overwhelming sense of freedom. Maybe, from the very beginning, I never should have stepped into this world of lies and scheming.